sequence is called It's Who You Know. And you can go online and Google that and find dozens of different short films like that that are really nicely done. Can everybody hear me okay? I don't think I need to shout into this. I do want to tell you that the impact of my eye injury when I was 6 years old had just a huge, huge impact on me and on my vision and on my interest in art. So growing up, and Marty really asked me to focus a little bit on what it was like growing up in the 60s. Anybody here grow up in the 60s? A couple of my roommates and classmates here and friends. So when we were little kids, Khrushchev, who was the head of Russia, was at the United Nations, and he took his shoe off and he pounded on the podium, and in Russian he shouted, "We will bury you." And this was a reference to nuclear attack in the United States. So this was pretty scary, pretty devastating for young kids in America. We were living in the post-atomic baby boom era, all children of World War II parents. So I don't know if you know, but fallout shelters were very popular because of this scare. Everybody, families were digging holes in their backyards and installing things like this so that they could crawl, if there was a nuclear attack from the United States, that they could crawl down into their fallout shelter. And I don't know what anybody was going to do down here with a couple of months worth of rice or something. Toilet. For the little kids, we were told to go underneath our desks. Can you imagine a nuclear bomb going off and how effective this would be? To go hide under your desk. And we had air raid drills like this in our schools. This is what we were taught to do. Can you imagine? So it was a little bit of a fearful time to grow up, but it was also a time of immense hope. After the war, the economy really was great. Everybody was buying refrigerators and color TVs and watching Walt Disney. And John F. Kennedy was elected president. He represented hope and charisma and courage. He wrote a book called Profiles in Courage, which was really great. He was young, and we loved him as a country. And we lost him. And we lost Martin Luther King. And we lost his younger brother, Robert Kennedy. And we lost a lot of our hope and our heroes. But at the same time, we had hope because of the space program. The space program was just getting underway. The little Mercury capsule. Alan Shepard was the first one. We were glued to our TV sets. Now, something goes up in space, and you maybe hear about it as a little 30-second piece on the news, but we were glued to our television sets. This was a major thing. That's me in study hall at Blair. We had to go to study hall. I don't know if you have to go to study hall? You do? If you have really bad grades, you never get out of study hall. And we had to get, I think our average had to be a B+ or something like that for us to get out. Otherwise, we had to go over to Memorial Hall, which is now your library, and sit upstairs with a teacher that had some kind of stick that he would hit us with. There was no girls at Blair. That was pretty bad. The minute we left, then they brought the girls. So one of our heroes, and John Sebastian was one of our heroes. He had gone to Blair, and he actually is a really good friend of mine right now. He went out on the golf course with his girlfriend, and he got caught out there. And he got in trouble, and they took his guitar away. And he didn't like that, and eventually he left Blair. think he got kicked out. And he went back to New York City. He went back to Greenwich Village, where he picked up the guitar and the auto harp and started writing songs and became the group called the Love and Spoonful, which had hit after hit after hit. The biggest hit was Summer in the City, and he was our hero. His little brother Mark was also a student here at Blair when I was here. I was pretty much of a nerd. Can you say? Geeky. Look at those glasses, they're like Chevys. So we grew up with the Beatles too. You know, the Beatles were a bunch of mop-top kids from Liverpool, and every album they produced took us along with them. They matured before our eyes, there's Ed Sullivan. And their music matured with us and really had a huge impact on us, along with all the music of that time period. Really one of the most creative explosions in American history. So at Blair, there were very, very good teachers. There still are. I had really great English teachers. One of them was named Tony Casson, and another was Fred Hutchinson. I think that's right. And they encouraged me to skip sports and write poetry and short stories, which I did. And during my 3 years at Blair, I wrote 3 separate books. These are them, and I self-published them on a little printing press in the basement of Lock Hall. And this has impacted everything that I've done ever since. The ability to write. In fact, my Blair education was so good that I didn't have to study when I got to college. That was not good. You should keep studying when you get to college. That's my big advice to you. So Vietnam was going on at the time, and this was a terrible thing for our generation. Our generation was split between people that were supporting the war effort versus the people that were protesting against it. And they started a lottery system for recruiting soldiers. So we all watched it on television as we saw what our birthday lottery number was. Al, what was yours?
36.
36. You went in the Navy. I was 68, just like my graduating class. For some reason, I didn't get called up because I didn't have an address. So you really had a choice. You could join John Lennon and the peace movement, or you could be on the other side. Both sides were viable. I chose this side. 1971, May Day in Gettysburg, my final act in college. I didn't graduate from college, largely because of this little display. I was making a protest against the Vietnam War with this sculpture. It made it on the cover of the Gettysburg Times and got back to my parents, and they didn't appreciate how I was using the money they were spending on my education. So there's John Sebastian at Woodstock on the big stage. I can't tell you how important the Whole Earth Catalog was to us as a generation. This, in fact, the Whole Earth Catalog was our internet. In it were everything you ever wanted to know about anything you could think of. And if you couldn't find it inside there, at least they would tell you where you could find it. So Stuart Brand, who's pictured here, he was the editor and founder of Whole Earth Catalog, actually provided the space where Steve Jobs invented the Apple computer. Ms. Magazine was hugely impactful for us. It came out right at the very apex of the counterculture movement, largely driven by feminists like Gloria Steinem, and it was our girlfriends that instilled in the men the sense of feminism. And we certainly grasped it, and I hope you don't lose it. So this is the cover of Life magazine, and it was about the communes of California. And I saw this cover, and I got in my Dodge van with 4 other like-minded hippies, and we traveled across the country and landed in Northern California on a commune called Morning Star Ranch. And there I am at Morning Star. Morning Star was started by Lou Gottlieb. The neighbors didn't appreciate it. The neighbors were doctors and lawyers and fairly conservative people. They didn't appreciate a bunch of hippies picking their apples in the middle of the night. And they tried to shut it down. And Lou went to court and sold the property for $1 to God. So God became the landowner. Very difficult to bring God into court. This caused 7 years of trouble for the California courts. And it ended eventually with God being found incompetent. Seriously. God was found incompetent as a landowner, and everybody on the property was promptly arrested, except for me, because I built a trapdoor underneath my little hut. So during this time, this was an incredibly prolific time for my music and for my artwork. That was my occupation every day. I created drawings that were conceptual in nature, not commercial whatsoever. But I produced close to 500 drawings. And if you want to look at them, you can go to my website, which is Boak.com. That's fairly easy, and see some of the drawings. The drawings are often symmetrical like this, and meditative, influenced by Eastern religion and by George Harrison's music. But gradually, those geometric patterns started to break apart into more realistic imagery. I was hugely influenced by Buckminster Fuller, who was one of the greatest visionaries of our time. He invented the geodesic dome, but he did so much more than that. He wrote a book called I Seem to Be a Verb. I started building geodesic domes all over the place. There's one that I built in Stowe, Vermont. This is one that I built at Blair Academy. And that's Mr. Master, who I'm on top of his shoulders. And we covered this with a parachute. And then it proceeded to rain for 3 days, and then the winds came. And the anchors, I had this anchored 3 feet into the ground all the way around. But the grass was wet, it was muddy. It took off like a jellyfish. And it was on the side of the bowl, right in front of the Armstrong Hipkin Art Center, which wasn't there. It lifted off about, well, it cleared a 12-foot ladder. And it landed by the cesspool. You know where the cesspool is? It's about a half a football field away from where it was. That was the end of the Blair Academy dome. So I started to cast jewelry. I guess my point in showing you this is all the different mediums have an impact upon each other. And I used to call it dropping beads of mercury onto a mirror. Eventually those beads of mercury congeal into one thing. And what that thing is how you approach tasks. I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Driving to Blair, I had to come through the little town of Nazareth, and I saw a sign for Martin Guitars, and I'd been trying to build guitars very unsuccessfully, and I decided to stop in and take a tour at Martin guitars. And after the tour, I was just flabbergasted, and I asked if they had any scrap woods. They sent me around to that dumpster, and I started making lathe turnings and jewelry boxes and small pieces of woodworking out of their scrap materials. And gradually my instruments started to get a little bit better. They're still very bad, but they started to get a little bit better. And one day I was in the dumpster looking kind of like I was at the Combine, and with dirt all over me, and the foreman of the back door came and said, he was Pennsylvania Dutch. You know what that is? He said, well, what do you do with this stuff anyhow? And I had two instruments. I handed them to him. He said, do you mind if I parade them around the shop once? And off he went with my two instruments, and he ran into Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin at the time was about 85 years old, the fourth generation of Martins to run the business. Mr. Martin said, what do you have there, Harvey? And he said, look what the kid made. Mr. Martin looked at them and he said, tell that kid to apply for a job. Harvey came back, handed the instruments back to me, and he said, the old man says you should apply for a job. It's spelled C-H-O-B. So I brushed off, and as best as I could, went around to the front, and the receptionist was doing her nails. And I said, I'd like to apply for a job, and she said, I don't think we have anything for you. And I said, well, any openings at all? She said, there's only one opening, design drafting. I said, well, I've been doing design drafting for 12 years. I've been teaching it for 5 years. I have examples of my draftings in the car. She said, well, we're really looking for somebody with experience with woodworking. I said, well, I'm making lathe turnings and jewelry boxes out of your scraps. And I have examples in the car. Should I bring them in? And she said, well, we're really looking for somebody with experience with musical instruments. I said, well, here's two that I made, and the only one said I should apply for a job. They brought somebody from personnel and interviewed me, and they said, could you start tomorrow? And I said, not really. I have to go to the Bob Dylan concert. I could start on Wednesday. So that was 40 years ago. That was 40 years ago. And I didn't tell them that I would have done the job for free. I was so excited to be finding a career that blended creativity and my interest in art and woodworking all together into one thing. So, by the way, I got right down to drafting, kept illustrating, kept doing woodworking, and I bought a church, an old abandoned church in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Promptly called it the Church of Art. I think people thought I was Charles Manson or something. But I had just a fantastic space inside where I held concerts with people like John Sebastian, and continued to build instruments and do woodworking. And I wanted to make everything, the shower, the kitchen sink, everything out of wood. And I experimented in every respect with my guitar making, small guitars, big guitars, fancy guitars, plain guitars, guitars with multi-stripes. This is a guitar made with 126 pieces of wood. And my job at Martin gradually morphed into collaborations with different artists. Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Tom Petty, Crosby, Stills and Nash. Probably my most favorite and famous collaboration with Eric Clapton. And because of my writing at Blair, because of my drafting ability at Blair, because of my interest in music at Blair, everything came together. Had the opportunity to write many books and have them actually published, which is a really nice feeling, I have to tell you. And these days, I'm working, collecting literally tens of thousands of photographs from the dawn of photography to present day to tell the story of my guitars. This is just one little example of research. I found this 2 weeks ago in Tennessee. And also, I've been really fortunate to be able to continue my love of music. The instrument I was playing when you came in is called an auto harp. This is a really good auto harp. You've probably seen these in grade school, and they're really crummy. But this is a really good one. I find that the instrument really useful for songwriting because it's pretty easy to play. But if you keep at it, you can learn to play it a little better. I'm going to play you a song that I wrote. I actually started this song. How are we doing on time, Marty? I wrote this song about Bob Dylan, and in the process found out that it was really about me. It's called Let It Go, and for a while everybody that heard it thought that I was somehow copying the Let It Go song from that movie, which I still haven't even heard yet. Once you were an artist with nothing left to lose, and once you were the minstrel professing FS blues, beginning to round up everyone that knows more than you do. Now what do you have to say about superhuman crew? But if you want to turn it on and listen to me, bro. So pick it up, brush it off, and just let it go. Let it go. Once you loved a woman tenderly and true, once you watched her drift away, taking part of you, and once you sang of destiny, of sadness and romance, and once you were the victim of simple circumstance. But if you want to turn it on and take it from below, just pick it up, brush it off, and then just let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Once each case to carry to the top of Prospect Hill, trading love for money, it's a lonesome bitter pill. Well, some are old and tired, with little left to say, repeating all their phrases
reliving yesterday. But if you want to move it on, then screw the status quo. Just pick it up, brush it off, and then just let it go. Let it go. So if I haven't squandered too much of your time, I'm hopeful that we could have some questions. Don J. Smith, class of 66. Five. Oh, I didn't realize you were that old.
Thank you. This is not a question, but really a commentary for everyone here. I have also had the good fortune to be able to create a museum. I'd like to commend Dick on the museum he has created at the Martin Factory. If any of you have an opportunity to go and visit this, it is spectacular. It did a wonderful job. So.
Thank you, Don. Don's involved with the New Jersey Hall of Fame, which is a fantastic project. And if you really work hard, you might get inducted into it sooner or later. Anybody?
Did you raise your kids in that church?
Well, the balcony was about 12 feet off the ground and completely open. And we figured it's not a really great place to raise kids, so we bought a house outside of town, up on Prospect Hill, and kept the church for about 7 more years, leasing it out to an assortment of artists, and eventually sold it to my best friend, who I carry the mortgage, and I'm just waiting for him to miss a payment so that I can foreclose on him. It was a great place, though. Had usually one concert every month, and some really, really great shows. Yes?
Dick, with your drawings, can you envision what the picture is going to look like before you draw it, or does it sort of develop more organically as you're going along?
The drawings really fall into 2 categories. When I didn't have an idea for something, I would start with a dot in the middle and develop a geometrical circle pattern like a mandala or yantra, as I call them, and these were intended to develop the muscles in my hands and keep my drawing ability sharp. But when I had an idea, I would try to sketch it out lightly in pencil, not with great detail, and then start to layer dots to create the halftones necessary to make the picture. The thing about any art, I think, at least in my case, is that the final product rarely was exactly what the image in my mind was. It was just an approximation. And so I came to call the drawings approximations of impossibilities, just like the words. Yes?
Have you ever used your drawings to help you write songs?
Well, I have to tell you that when times were tough, and I traveled around with a little portfolio that had a handle, and hitchhiked around, and if I ran out of money, I could walk into a diner or a bar, lay my drawings out on the table, and start working on another drawing, and before I knew it, there was 10 people standing around looking and asking me about it and wanting to know if they could buy one of the drawings, and I would sell them the drawings for $10 or $20, enough to get a hamburger and then off to the next town. So I don't know that any of the drawings actually impacted my music. even though my approach to drawing and my approach to music are pretty much conception, initiation, work, and completion. Like anything that you do, it's a process, and if you get good at the process, it doesn't matter what you do. Yes?
Do you start typically with lyrics or with the chord progression or melody?
Well, I almost always start with lyrics. This particular song, and you might have noticed at the very beginning it sounds like Tommy. You know, those two chords, that's a suspended chord. The day that I got this auto harp, I brought it home and started playing, and I landed on those chords, and the song emerged from that, and I wrote to the music. But almost always I write lyrics first, and then try to come up with music. And sometimes I get stuck, but I have a really good friend who is a fantastic musician and guitar player, and sometimes if I get stuck on music, he can look at it and I can say, well, I think it goes like this, and I hum something, and he says, oh, well, how about this? And he nails it instantaneously, and we're off and running. So it can work both ways, but I almost always write lyrics first. Yes?
We've had a lot of successful people and entrepreneurs that are playing alumni here at Skeptics, and a lot of them talk about the impact of talking to their friends and conversing with friends about dreams and aspirations they were like while there. I was wondering if you ever had experience like that and how it might affect.
The question is, did I talk with friends about my
Yeah, just think about your dreams and aspirations with your friends at Blair, and if that ever affected your life, and if you sketched out anything.
There's one of my friends. That's Al Hunter, and he's been my friend ever since Blair. And we went to college together. You know, we talk about Blair all the time. Sometimes we meet here, play music together in the black box in the dead of night. Sometimes out on the bleachers by the athletic field, if it's a nice night. I think I learned mechanical drawing here. I had a really, really tough teacher, the toughest teacher in mechanical drawing that you would ever hope to find. And mechanical drawing doesn't even exist anymore. Now you have CAD/CAM. But we had to learn how to draw. And this guy, his name was Atkinson, Robert Atkinson, and he was tough. And he really graded hard. If your lines didn't come together perfectly, he'd circle everything. And I'd get like a 60 on my, I'd spend 2 weeks on a drawing, he'd give me a 60, and it made me so mad. I went back and I'd do it over and I'd get a 75, and I'd be mad and I'd do it over again and I'd get an 85. And I really didn't enjoy that, but after going through that process with him, I was a really great draftsman, and it impacted my job, getting the job at Martin. Like I said, the writing, pretty much everything that I learned at Blair, I'm still using. And I can't say that about the college I went to. Blair was much, much, much better.
When you were off going to communes and locking yourself in a cage with your own design and stuff like that.
By the way, that was based on Franz Kafka, Der Hogerarzt, which I read here.
So it's all Blair's fault.
Yeah.
How terrified were your parents?
They were amazing. I mean, I can't believe they didn't have me locked up or put away. But I think many parents were in the same situation with their kids, because it was a challenging time for parental-child relationships, I think. But my father was a steel firm executive from Bethlehem Steel, and a God-fearing, Richard Nixon-loving Republican, and then I came along. And we had arguments at the dinner table. He didn't like Martin Luther King. I think he had a little bit of racism left in him, and over the course of 25 years, I pounded every last bit of racism out of him. And he turned out to be a pretty great dad, pretty supportive dad. But I think it was a tough time for parents and kids.
Do you ever think about the inequities of the war and some people going off to war and others not? From the perspective of a guy who has a family, a great career, and longevity.
Well, at the time I didn't feel guilty about it. And you know, what really brought it out was the publication that you put out about the 60s. And I expected, I don't know what I expected out of that publication, but when I received it, I expected to read a bunch of stories about a bunch of hippies like me that had similar experiences that I had. There was nothing in there that was remotely like my experience. Everything was coming from totally different perspectives, and a lot of it from a military perspective. And it certainly made me do a double take on the fact that my experience wasn't necessarily the common experience. I didn't want to go fight in the war. I think I probably would have tried to be a conscientious objector. As a matter of fact, I almost got thrown off of a third-floor balcony by a union representative at Bethlehem Steel Company because I spouted off something about conscientious objection. But we certainly owe a fantastic thanks to everybody that served, and you know, a lot of them, they didn't have a choice, really. Whether it was a good war or a bad war or how it's judged in history, kids were drafted and sent over there, and a whole lot of them didn't come back.
Well, Dick, remember that you didn't go to war if you were in college. There was an exemption. So not everybody was drafted because of
Right.
your birthday. I don't know if you know that.
What was your number?
My number was quite low, but I was at college.
You stayed in college for 14 years? Anybody? Yes?
What kind of music do you listen to today? And kind of, in asking that, wondering how much your tastes have changed and what you think of more modern music.
Well, a whole lot of, you know, my parents were listening to Frank Sinatra and they kind of got stuck on that. And a lot of people in my generation got stuck on the music of Woodstock or Beatles or Crosby, Stills, Nash. Because of my job, I was forced to constantly be looking for new artists and listening to new music. But I have to say that it was really my daughter Emily and her and my younger daughter Grace that constantly are finding incredible bands. Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, and you know the Lumineers, and Miko, and all these fabulous groups. There are so many great music groups that are current, modern artists, and how would you ever find them? The way my daughters find them is through word of mouth from their friends, and maybe on Spotify if they subscribe to a particular channel. If they like one artist, they can do Pandora and hear artists that are similar. So I have to say that I've been turned on to a tremendous amount of current music from my daughters, and there's no shortage of it. And anybody that's, you know, I hear a lot of people from my generation say, well, there's nothing as good as the Beatles, or, you know, it's a pile of crap.
Okay, if you'd like to speak with Dick, I'm sure many of you do. Just come on up and say thank you.